Welcome to the Cooperation in Education podcast series. In this limited series, we will dive into the future of higher education and explore how cooperations can transform learning experiences. This podcast series is part of the Cooperation in Education Knowledge Gateway project, in short, the CIE Gateway project. CIE Gateway is an international project that aims to support educators in better preparing their students for the dynamic and challenging world of work. We do that by 1. Encouraging multidisciplinary and external collaborations, 2. Fostering engagement with industry and society for educational practice, and 3. Equipping academic staff with tools and resources to enhance education delivery. The CIE Gateway project unites partners from 4 countries across Europe: IMTBS from France, FH Münster from Germany, UIN for the Netherlands, and Young from Finland. The CIE Gateway project is funded by the European Union. Views and opinions expressed are, however, those of the authors only and do not necessarily reflect those of the European Union or the Finnish National Agency for Education. Neither the European Union nor the granting authority can be held responsible for them.
Hello everyone, we are back for one more episode of our Cooperation in Education podcast series. I'm your host, Mainara Furkin, a researcher at the FH Münster working on the CIE Gateway project. Today's episode is about empowering tomorrow's leaders, companies as mentors in collaborative projects. We will talk about this topic with Orla Casey. Orla is the founder of Momentum, an education and innovation company working throughout Ireland and Europe, specialized in crafting original and practical support in various fields such as EU program development, transferring innovation through vocational educational training, and adult and youth education. Hi Orla, thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure. Please tell us a bit about yourself, the Momentum's journey, especially as a partner to university and advocate for collaboration in education to develop students, our tomorrow's leaders.
Such a pleasure to be here. So thank you so much for the invitation. So you gave a great introduction there. So Momentum is, I suppose we work at the interface between academia and industry, and we really try to bridge any gaps that are there because both need each other very, very much. And I think sometimes there's often a challenge to engage in a more meaningful way. So we bridge that gap, and it obviously collaboration is a key part of what we are. But I suppose we very much see the value of mentoring students in terms of they are our future leaders. And it's so interesting that I'm already 20 years in Momentum and even longer, a few more decades in the workplace. And I am seeing those young people now coming through as colleagues in different projects, etc. And they are amazing. So I think it's a very important aspect that industry gives back to academia and makes it easier. But it's not always easy as your project is trying to solve.
Yeah, exactly. It's what we are trying to show here. This is the purpose of the podcast and the project. We want to be out there and talk about different people and different perspectives so we can hopefully enhance the chances of this cooperation between academia and industry to happen more often and help even more the students because we know how valuable it is and we know that it's not easy.
Yes.
So I think that is one big thing that we start, and Momento has been helping, as I said, for so many years. So you already saw different generations also coming, going, and we have been discussing a lot about how collaboration is so important, so crucial for education, but not only for that, but also for innovation, and is what also Momentum stands for. So I would like to know a bit from your perspective, so the industry, the company side, what are the key ingredients, let's say, or aspects for building these successful partnerships between academia and industry and bridges gaps that you just mentioned?
Absolutely. I think the fundamental ingredient is a really enthusiastic broker on both sides. So somebody in academia that can recognize, in the first instance, real world challenges that industry are facing in the broader macroeconomic context, but also, I suppose, is empowering their students that they have new solutions, new approaches, things that are very dynamic that the company isn't able to get to, don't have time. So I think that's really important. So a very enthusiastic academic connector. On the other hand, the industry needs to value the new learning and the experiential learning that the student is going to have to go through before they come up with the solutions to those challenges. So there has to be a lot of patience on both sides. I think we would take a very practical approach. It's about getting the right match between the mentor and the mentee and the company. Sometimes that needs preparation. We need to really understand what motivates the student and what are the challenges of the company, and be very careful about how we match make that situation, because I think it's not a one size fits all. We need people to be very aligned to each other's and respectful, and really understand what the other has to gain or the challenges that come from it. I think helping companies to understand the broader academic landscape where students are operating in is very important. So there's a nice aspect of learning on both sides, but to understand the value that those students are going to bring, but also what their overall ambition is. So both have to be committed to the collaboration, understand the value that it's going to bring on both sides, have patience, have a really good matching process, and it was great communication. Doesn't it all come back to great communication and people liking people, if you like? So there has to be a bit of chemistry in here, and a very open sharing of how the process is going. So yes, we would say that such collaboration needs to be evaluated, but obviously this needs to be in real time, it's dynamic, and tackle any challenges head on. Understanding, setting out very clearly at the very beginning what the parameters of the assignment or the collaboration is going to be is really important. What are people's expectations? I think sometimes we fail to really articulate the scope of the assignment or the collaboration and what is expected. So managing expectations from the very, very start is really important.
Yeah, we have heard that from educators as well.
Great.
Everything comes to communication.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, it is a people's business, let's say. And I also heard that from the university, and they said there is no blueprint. It's a one-to-one thing, so it's different every time you do because it's a personal relationship. And especially when we are talking about mentoring and having this deeper connection between the student and the company, it's very important to communicate and to, of course, keep the open channel and align the expectations, as you said. And we live in a world that is so fast-paced and dynamic and always changing. So we cannot overlook the importance of mentorship, because in the end, that makes a really big difference, especially when we are trying to make the students the future leaders. And mentorship serves as a guiding light to these young minds. So the company can help then the students, the young ones, to navigate the workforce and the industry, because we know it's not that easy at the beginning. So when they already have some previous contact in a safe setting, that is sometimes called, or in a way that is in a controlled environment at some instance within the academia and the industry, that the educators do that managing and moderating this interaction and this connection. Then my question for you is if you could tell us a bit, how can the companies themselves act as mentors in this collaborative project? So what impact do the companies actually have on the students' professional development?
Yeah. I think you used a beautiful phrase just now, and you mentioned the word safe setting. So I think that is exactly what industry, the company needs to do, is create a safe setting where that professional development can come to life. So it was after articulating what the assignment is or what the goal of the mentorship program is. Is it to tackle a specific project, a problem, to do some research, to do some innovative design thinking, whatever it may be, whatever the function of the role is. I mean, a company has to really give the student a fantastic grounding, I suppose, in their industry, their environment that they're in, the challenges and opportunities that they face, and what's coming down the line, because I think that's something that companies expect from higher education. Looking at latest trends, the whole area of AI, and there's such fear as to roles of the future, and we know that 21st century skills, etc., are going to be really, really important. Those critical analysis, how we interpret data, etc. So the company really has to, I suppose, get that grounding and expose students to that on a very open basis. To be very, very clear, this is not perfect. This is what we are facing, and how can you assist it? I think understanding the role of a mentor in terms of building that student confidence is really important. Then, on the other hand, there's practical skills that can be gained. So, in terms of impact, that the student at the end of the mentorship feels that they have a better understanding of what awaits them in their professional lives afterwards. And it might be, and just as good a result as any, is that they decide, okay, this is not for me. And that can be a fantastic result as well. Truly valuable. So can that company assignment ignite something in the student that I want to further develop my learning in this area, or I want to go straight into that industry, or I'm not going to go to that industry, I'm going to change my career path completely. So yeah, that safe setting is a lovely way to describe it, I think.
I like it to call it like that, but it's exactly what you said. It's about preparing and giving them a basis, clue of what to expect when they go out there. And as you said, there are so many ways that companies can help to give this guidance, regardless of the task, regardless what is happening in the collaboration. Being there is already important because it already gives the chance to the students to ask and see how the dynamic world of work works. And it could be that they decide to go in a different path, or it could be okay, that is not a company or a field that I would like to work on, especially if you come from fields that are a bit broader. So, for example, businesses, you can do so much if you start business. Okay, but which type of company, which type of work? So it's always good to have some contact. It could
Just one
be.
thing that just in that mentoring role, one of the things we love to do is do a multidisciplinary approach. So we might get a humanities graduate working with a food producer, to mix it up. It doesn't have to be exactly what you are aligned to in your course of study with the industry. When you mix it up, it can actually create magic. Things come to life hugely.
Yes, this multidisciplinary aspect is so crucial. And that's why it's also important to have the company side, because that's how in the end works. Because you start business, but then when you work on a project with a company, it could be that you get in contact with something that you never saw in your classes because it's a multidisciplinary. You have so many things, and we have so many examples as well that we have been discussing of how to make the students better by being multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary and making their learning experience better. So you provide the chance for them to have this contact, because from the company side, this process of mentoring or collaborating can be seen as a diamond refining, right? So it's in a way finding and mentoring and fostering this possible future talents and leaders and change makers, decision makers. What we believe, we can imagine that facilitating these meaningful collaborations between the students and the industry partners, of course, requires then effective strategies or effective communication, as you have said as well, and open and aligning expectations and everything. But perhaps, do you have any other tips or best practice then in this case for the companies who want to start or who would like to have this collaboration with academia, so that they can make sure they have a meaningful and impactful collaboration? And of course, any risks and any challenges that you could avoid, or how to handle them also from the industry perspective.
Yes, I think from an industry perspective, to understand that this is a time commitment, and to be very clear about how open channels of communication can be, to set regular feedback sessions, you just have a really clear timetable of this is deep work, and this is where we will review, and this is where we will plan, and just that you give enough time to it, because I think that's one of the challenges that sometimes industry face. And have one dedicated person, contact point between the student and the company. But having said that, it's way better if they work with more than one person in the team. That's when and particularly for us, when we work with students, they gain much more when they work with my colleagues on many different aspects of solving a challenge. So cross teamwork is brilliant. But having one person as a dedicated mentor is absolutely brilliant. I suppose in terms of risk, where there's a misalignment, I suppose, between the expectations is always going to be for me, the greatest risk. The commitment of the student has to be very tangible. They have to do as they have set out that they're going to do. They have to be involved. I think that the involvement of the academic with a regular review on a three-way review is always important. So the academic, the student, and the company. And if there is something if it's a 3-month program and there's a meeting every month, is very important, because it really does connect the student into this is part of my obligation, and I need to show up. If there is a need, if it's not going positively, I need to change very quickly, just to not let it run on for the 3 months that I mentioned, not to be afraid to change. I think that's really, really important. So that feedback, recognizing it's all about direct interaction. One of the other things that really helps, I think, is when we have a peer review session. So the mentee and the mentor getting together with perhaps two others and having a very short, it could be 1 hour. And there's great shared learning and it's in real time. This is the beauty of mentorship, that it's real time. We can fix things if there's any challenges, but just to be creative about it, I think that always helps, and to go with the flow. But when something is working and working well, enable it. Don't put barriers in the way, as sometimes can happen in industry and in academia. I think one of the things that's really important to me is that the company really values the student involvement. So for us, when we have a student involved, we share their experience through social media. We would record a kind of exit interview with them, and we use that then as part of our company culture and sharing what that's about and showing, momentum, or any of our industry clients. So we're open to collaboration. We're open to nurturing young talent. So I think that whole communicating the value of it, and that then is also used for building the profile of the student, its profile of the university, and also the company. So when it's over, it's not really over. There should be something tangible left behind, whether it be an exit interview or a project that could be shared online or testimonial. So there's some nice ways to share it and add value for everybody. I think that's the secret.
It's so great to hear that it's keeping it out there. That's the point. That's what we also have been discussing and hearing.
Oh, wow.
Everybody is open to talk about it. So keeping these doors open, as you said, something that keeps showing this is the work we do and this is what we value. It's very important. And it's very interesting because we recently did a survey within the project with the students. So we wanted to hear the students. What do you think about this whole collaboration process, collaborative projects with industry and everything? And we got a bit of a feeling of what are their experience in this field, if any. And many students actually mentioned what you also said, lack of engagement of the companies.
Oh, yes.
Especially time-wise. So the lack of time, because then it's too much. The company does not invest the time or does not have this one person that is there every time, or this contact person. And then the whole thing fell apart because you don't have a good communication in the end. In the end, we always come back to the same thing. So, and as I was hearing you, I was like, yeah, we hear that from the students as well. So they also feel that it's also not valuable for them when the company says, okay, I would like to assist you, I would like to mentor you, I would support you and have a project with you, but I'm not there. I do not engage. I do not do this frequent meetings, or I'm there only in the first meeting to tell you what I want, and then I'm gone for the whole 3 months. And then I come back in the end, and then you didn't do what I want, and then how are you supposed to do that?
No. But that's the wrong match. That company should not be a mentor. They're not willing to commit to what is required of them. And one of the things actually that just struck me, in a company, there has to be a culture of mentorship. And that doesn't happen overnight. That needs to build over time. And it's a skill, and perhaps some training is required. So some briefings and some sessions with the employers to really explain the value of mentorship, some tips and tactics. I think that's really, really important.
And there's also benefit if you were there. And I think that sometimes the companies do not see, like, okay, someone reach out to you, would like to have your input, would like to have you collaborating. What is in for you? Of course, that's very important to be sure. And sometimes you don't have to start big. That's also the other thing we have been discussing. You don't have to start with a whole 3-month thing project. You can start with a guest speak and or a short workshop or something to start showing the industry, because that, as you said, sometimes they do not see the value of being there and how it can aggregate.
I would add to that the student really needs to add value. So in terms of communication, to be proactive, but bring content or value. That's really important. There has to be a strong quality ethos, I suppose, around what the student is bringing back to the industry in terms of whether it is research or whatever. Because if that quality isn't there, and if that added value, should I say, isn't there, then the company becomes less involved or less enthusiastic. So again, goes back to the very beginning. What is the understanding of what the objectives and the goals are of the mentorship program?
Yeah, exactly. And then I have a question that may be tricky, but let's see.
Yeah, go for it.
let's say Momento never did that, you never did that in your life, having mentorship or being involved with a student, what could be something that even from the university side, when approaching the company
Yes.
or trying to get it, what could be something that would help or would make you more interested or to engage?
I think by sharing examples, I suppose, of how mentorship have solved tangible problems. If we come back up to the real world challenges, I suppose that we mentioned at the outset, how can the student community and the academic community bring value to those real world challenges? And I think the value, and I mentioned earlier, but the actual publicity value of being involved, or the reputational value, should I say, of being involved with X university, with X student to address issues or to look at something exciting within the company. That's hugely valuable. Every company needs PR. Every company doesn't do enough PR. So I think, or enough marketing. So huge value. So I think that is definitely going to be helpful. It's an extra resource. It's a fresh pair of young eyes. Fresh perspectives are hugely valuable. We worked with our local municipality to broker, and again, brokering mentorships can be really important in terms of, it might not always be industry, it might be, so our local authority is responsible for the development of arts and culture in our municipality. So they had a number of art students, and we placed them in engineering company to work on specific design related challenges. And they didn't have an engineering background at all. Oh my goodness, the magic that happened was just beautiful and really valuable, hugely valuable for the companies and the students. So that's what we're saying, that multidisciplinary thing. How can we articulate that for the companies and they understand that the scope of this can be so powerful? Yeah.
And you just brought another perspective here, not only from the industry, but also from the government, municipalities, and especially local community. How do you see that this collaborations between industry, getting the students, especially impacting then the local community? Because I think you have quite experience in local work, as you just mentioned.
Yes. One of the areas that we would do a lot of work in is in regeneration of communities. So whether that's urban or rural, there are specific challenges. So we have brought in design thinking and sustainability students to work with the community to articulate what do we want to see and use the principles of design thinking that the community have never done before. They didn't even know about design thinking. And that has been transformative. And that would not have happened without the student involvement. One of the other things that's happening in our area at the moment is that the students of Atlantic Technological University are working on mobility challenges that are faced by rural communities and rural municipalities to solve public transportation. But students are doing that. They're collecting the data. They are working on specific projects that are looking at solving real world problems. Hugely valuable for everybody. I suppose that comes back to resources as well, and that's something that needs to be mentioned, I think, is everybody, I suppose, expect everybody's time to be free in this, to be honest, and you're doing for the greater good. And perhaps at some stage, or is there a source of funding at some point that could actually be put in place to resource some of this? Resource mentorship. So it could be a paid mentorship as opposed to paid internship. But how could mentorship be resourced within the companies and the universities? I think that's really important. I suppose one of the things just to mention as well is that it hasn't been all great experiences for us. We've had some bad experiences, and those have happened where the university supervisor or the person managing the program hasn't engaged, or like that has waited until the end, hasn't been involved in a continuous assessment, have done an entry survey and an exit survey and nothing in the middle. And I think that is a lost opportunity. And it can be frustrating for the company that you're just there, you're not learning as much on that third. If we look at it as a three-legged stool, that third leg is missing. So yeah, I think that from a company point of view, that can be a little bit disappointing. I see that we also provide work experience opportunities for second level students, and that happens all the time. We give huge amount of time and we never hear anything back. So I think that feedback, I don't know. We don't want a certificate, we don't want anything, but if just some level of recognition would be lovely. But they come year after year, and then it goes all quiet again. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say this continuity, then it is harder because you said, okay, you need to have a contact point from the company side, but the other side also needs to be there, right? Otherwise, you don't hear anything. And how do you keep motivated? How do you keep involved and engaged? And it was so great to hear all this local impact, and also to hear that what are the struggles and the resources that you might need and might provide in these situations to make it thrive, because that's what we want to do. We want it to be beneficial for all parties involved: students, industry, academia, also municipalities, or anyone that is there get something out of it. And most importantly, we are working with real world global challenges, right? As you just mentioned, transportation or something to solve in the local community, to see the value that you can see the work being recognized. That's also something the student mentions. Sometimes they also don't have the value recognized. The company comes, get whatever, and if they're happy, they have it. If they're not happy, I'm sorry. And then that's it. The students never get this recognition, and it doesn't need to be financial recognition. So many other ways to be recognized, as you said, a PR, it's so important, and just to show the value to all of those that were involved, that you appreciate all the time together, because that's the end. You're choosing to spend time with this topic, with these people, to get something out of it and to also provide something. So I think it's so great to hear all of that thing, so many aspects that we have been discussing, and you just bringing them back. And I would say, as we get to the end of this episode already, Orla, do you have any final thoughts or advice for the listeners, particularly the educators and also the industry partners that we want to foster? So how to empower these future leaders through mentorships in this whole collaborative, multidisciplinary projects world?
Wow. Yes. I think I go back to that lovely word. It's new for me, and I'm going to be using it going forward, creating this safe setting, this safe, really dynamic setting that's going to be interesting for everybody, that we're enthusiastic and that we want to be involved in the mentorship, encouraging everybody to be proactive, to bring value, always add value, very important. And just when you were speaking about the last points, I think in marketing, like it's very much about what's in it for me. Everybody needs to know what is the reward for them for being involved. So I think setting that out really, really clearly at the very beginning is so important. Um, you mentioned it as well, recognition. Probably one of the most important part, that that while we communications are important, but respecting and recognizing each other's value is really important. And that, if we learn that, and particularly as a younger person or a student, that's going to be a hugely valuable trait going forward. So nothing, I think, and fix problems early. Just if it's not right, if it's not working in real time, make changes to make it work. We all want good experiences. And as you say, perhaps mentorship starts on a smaller scale basis, very clear parameters, and then can evolve into a more committed relationship, if you like. And again, maybe making avenues for that. I mean, we are still in contact with many of students that we have mentored throughout Europe. The beautiful thing about this is that obviously geography has no boundaries now, because we all work online. So I think it's just adding value for everybody and being really clear about what our expectations are.
And how do you see the future of all of this? What do you hope for it? Or
Oh, yes. I think it's only beginning, to be honest with you. I think it's becoming much, much more prevalent. And I know sometimes universities struggle to find industry partners because they're busy, But I think if you can find a cohort, one of the things actually we do as well, and we should have mentioned, is that we work through clusters or with networks. So, example, we have a food network in our region, and there we are always connecting them with our local university in terms of mentorships, internships, and right through. And again, there's many different formats, I suppose, of how students can interact with companies, but being really clear about the mentorship is particular offering. So yeah, to work through others, that brokering, that is very important at the outset. So
hopeful, hopeful for
oh, very hopeful. Absolutely. It's only beginning. Absolutely. And it's great fun. It's very rewarding. It's just lovely as from an industry point of view to give something back. I think we have an obligation, and I think it's very important. And I think sometimes companies can be a little bit unsure of where to start. So I think sometimes it's up to the university to be the one to instigate it and say, here is an opportunity. This is what we expect from you, but this is what you're going to gain.
It's so great to hear all of that. I am so happy and I am so thankful to have you here today, Orla.
My
I
pleasure.
really hope our listeners, educators, industry, that all of these insights help them to collaborate more. And as you said, this is just beginning, and that this collaboration goes smoothly and brings value to all those involved. And of course, a huge thank you to you and also for our listeners who joined today to hear about empowering tomorrow's leaders, companies as mentors in collaborative projects. Thank you so, so much, Orla, for being here
Brilliant.
and sharing
Thank
all of this
you. And I
expertise.
should have said that one of the key pieces of advice I would give would be to check out the resources of your project. This is what it's all about. So, we are not operating in a vacuum. We have support. So, thank you and your project partners for bringing this to us all. Yes, great. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in into today's episode. Join us as we continue to explore collaborative projects and their role in the future of higher education. Follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. If you're interested in further materials, check out the show notes of this episode where you will find a link to our project website. We will fill it with further content and resources in the upcoming weeks. Cooperation in Education podcast series, where collaboration meets inspiration.